Okay, so we are now on our third topic regarding objects and classes. Okay, so this time around we will be discussing about methods. Okay, so topics for this lesson includes declaring of methods, how to use static keywords, return values for methods. Ito na yung discuss natin kanina or on our last topic, and access and mutator methods, accessors and mutator methods. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so declaring a method. So how do we declare methods? So okay, so review on methods. So we are familiar with what is a method. It is a self-contained block of program code similar to a procedure. Okay, and then so it is a sequence of instructions that a class or object follow to perform a task. Okay, so you have your attributes, and then this is where you try to process those attributes. Okay, and then it incorporates the logic to perform operations over fields and procedures, meaning to have and procedure meaningful outputs. Okay, so attributes alone are not enough, so that's why we use them. We use them inside the method to have your desired outputs na gusto nating makuha talaga. Okay, so mhm. So here are the things that we have to consider, okay, when declaring a method. So method name should be a verb and in lowercase. So a multi-word method name that begins with a verb and in lowercase is followed by an objective noun and the like. So for example, yun na nga, ginagamit natin get num, get ID, get name, mga ganyan. Okay? So you can have two words but dapat nakadikit sila or there is an underscore. A multi-word name, the first letter for each of the second and succeeding word should be in capital. Okay? So for the first letter, it should be the first letter should be small, but for the second word, the first letter should be in capital. Okay? So these are just tips, okay? It doesn't have to be that way talaga. Depende pa rin sa inyo saan kayo komportable, but mas maganda if you can follow this one. Okay? So for example, you have get average compared to get set age, display result, show student record. So these are some of the example method names that you can use, okay, when declaring a method. So to execute a method, you invoke or call it from another method. The calling method makes a method call which invokes a called method. So ang nangyayari dito is you're going or to be able to execute or call a method, it's going to call a method that allows that method to call another method. So parang naka-relay lang siya, okay? Parang tuloy-tuloy lang yung pagtawag. Okay? Syntax for declaring a method is as simple as this one. Okay? Nakikita niyo naman kanina, di ba? Or you were able to see kung yung mga sample natin ng mga methods. Okay? So you have your modifier, your return type, and your method name. So as you can see, there should always be a return type. Okay? Modifier, same. It's public, private. For return type, these are the 8 primitive data types plus 1. The plus one is the void. Again, you use the void or return type void if you are not going to return anything. If walang i-return, void ang ginagamit. But if there is a return, if you're returning anything, okay, if may i-return kayo na value, you have to set the return type. Okay? And then followed by the method name and then parameters if there are any parameters. Later on, I'll be discussing what are parameters. Parameters are also important in classes. Okay? So, okay, modifiers. This element optional which defines an access type of the method whether public or private. Okay? And then return type, it defines the type of value that will be returned by the method or void if method does not return any value. Ito na yung sabi ko kanina. Okay? And then method name, it defines the name of the method which can be any valid identifiers. So method name, this will be the name that you'll be using every time you want to call or access the method. So, so parameter list and parentheses. Okay? So para saan ba to? So it consists of comma delimited list of parameters enclosed with parentheses, open and close brace. Empty brace are used in case method has no parameters. So we use the open and close brace to indicate if meron bang gagamitin na it is used for parameters. Okay? So if you're not going to use any parameters, just leave it blank. But if you're going to use parameters, nagkakaroon na yun siya ng laman. Okay? Later on, we'll be discussing para saan yung parameters and how to use the parameters. Okay? But for now, just let know that the meaning of the two braces, di yun siya nilagay doon for design lang. Okay? It is intended for parameters. Yung open and close brace dyan. Okay? So, method body consists of a statement enclosed with the curly braces. More like same with the para saan nilalagay yung mga statements natin. Okay? So, for example, you have here. Okay. So, you have public. So, as you can see, static there, nilagay static. Okay? Static can be placed anytime. Okay? As long as dapat nasa taas siya. Okay, and then, so you have here the open and close. Okay, yung string args na walang dinalagyan ng closing brace. So yan yung mga parameter, yung string args. Okay? So later on, sige. So now, static keyword. Para saan ba si static? Okay? A static method belongs to a class, not the object. Okay, so a static method can be accessed only on static fields. It cannot be accessed on non-static fields. So if you're going to declare a method is going to be static, so it can only be used on static fields. For example, is yung main natin, main method. Okay, that is why we have public static void main. Kaya may static doon. So, later on, in case if you're going to create a different class, and then you have a static method, if you're going to call that static method, gagana siya doon sa main natin. Kasi naka-static yung main natin. Kasi if hindi naka-static yung main, and then you try to call a static method, hindi siya gagana. Okay? That is the reason bakit naka-static yung main method natin. Okay? Static methods only works on other static fields or static. Kung example, tatawagin mo yung static method inside another method, that method should also be in a static. Klaro? So, dapat they both should be static for them to be able to communicate. Okay, a static method can call only other static methods and non-static and not non-static. Okay, so ang pwede lang tumawag kay static method are also static methods. Okay, kaya nga later on if you're going to create a class and then you want to call yung main method ninyo and then hindi niya matawag, it is because naka-static siya. You have to make it static yung nasaang method man kayo to be able to call yung main natin. But usually, you don't call main, okay? Usually, lahat nilalagay natin kay main and then tinatawag na lang natin sila lahat papunta kay main. Okay? So next, we have, okay. Static method can be accessed directly by class name and does not need any object. Okay? So, again, static method, no need for an object. Pwede mo direktang tawagin siya anytime. Okay? With the static method cannot refer to this or super. Okay? So, ginagamit din natin ng this to indicate that you are on the same, for example, you are inside the method and then there's a variable there. So, instead of calling that variable or referring to this, to the, method or to the class or method itself, we can refer to this. Ibig sabihin, you're referring to that or kung nasaang method or class kayo. Okay. So for example, you have here yan. So public We have your static int count, and then you also have public static or public void non-static. Ayan. And then you also have public static void static method. Okay. So as you can see, if you're going to try to uh, so if you're going to try to print out student name, walang problema. Okay? Because di tayo magkakaproblema with student name kasi saan yung si ano, sabi student ayun, si student name. Di tayo magkakaproblema sa kanya. And then sa student count, wala din problema. The only problem is dito kay ah can you see yung sa public static void static method? Doon kasi sa taas, public void ng static, it is okay sa both of them okay kasi what do you call this one? Hindi siya naka-static. Take note, there's a difference between a static method and a static uh, attribute. Static attribute is available to all other methods. But a static method can only communicate with a static attribute or a static method. Okay? Kaya tayo nagkaroon ng error dito. Okay, makita niyo yung system out name, student name. Nagkaroon tayo ng error because student name is a string, hindi siya static. Kaya nagkaroon ng error. But doon kay student count, okay siya because naka-static siya. Klaro? Nagets ba yung example natin? Klaro, hindi? Klaro bakit nagkaroon ng error and bakit hindi nag-error yung sa iba? Hello? Are you there? Klaro ba guys?
Po, sir.
Hello? Alright, sige. Silence means yes. Okay, let's proceed. So return values for methods. Ito yung mga possible return values natin. We have the 8 primitive data types, as you all know. Okay, and then method return types is declared in its method declaration within the body of the method. So we use the return keyword to indicate na i-return na natin. So usually the return always use sa pinaka-end ng method. Okay, so method does not return any value, should declare a void to reference it as a void method. So again, if you void method, wala tayong i-return. So we use the keyword void. And then any method that is not declared void must be contained a return statement within a corresponding return value. So if you're not going to use a void on a method, so it means you'll be returning something, and that method or Java will be expecting that you have to return a value. Okay, pag wala kayo ni-return na value, magkakaroon siya ng error. So for example, how to use is just use return, keyword return, and then the value that you want to return. It can be a variable or it can be a string. Depende sa inyo. So for example here, okay, so you have here, as you can see, for the public void, set rectangle, okay, so meron siya nakalagay na parameters. Ito, to make clear with the parameters, para maging clarity with parameters, when you declare a variable or a method, you can add parameters. Parameters are like requirements, okay? Requirements for you to use the method. So as you can see here, okay, if meron tayong for set rectangle, meron siyang nilagay na dalawang parameters. Okay? Parameter is float length, float width. So this time around, if ever, if gagamit kayo or if you have to use the rectangle, you have to indicate what is the length and the width. Okay, kailangan yung ilagay yung length and width niya. If not, magkakaroon tayo ng error. Okay? Maliban na lang kung gagamit kayo ng uh, later on, didiscuss ko. So, again, parameters, yun yung purpose ng parameter. It is parang requirement. If you want to use this method, you have to place this. Okay? For example, ito na nga. Okay? Meron tayo dito set rectangle. For you to set a rectangle, you need to have to give a length and a width. So if you're going to use the method set rectangle, you have to provide what is the length and what is the width. So that, pag binigay ninyo ngayon yung length and width, so if you're going to set that, for example, we'll have a dot set rectangle, you can place 10 or 20, and then that would be the value for the length and the width. So that is parameters. Parameters allows you to set guidelines kumbaga on on if there should be data, or pwede ka mag-set ng guidelines or requirements na what is needed para ma-process yung method na yun. Okay? To make it clear, para bang, syempre, if you're going to look for a boyfriend, you have a criteria. Okay? Kung gusto mo magka-boyfriend, girlfriend, may criteria ka. Hindi ka lang tumatanggap ng kung ano-ano. Those are like parameters. Okay? Okay? So you have to check. Para maging jowa mo siya, gwapo ba, maganda ba, mayaman ba, nakakotse ba, matalino ba, bobo ba? Okay? Those are the parameters that you set. If someone was able to pass or fulfilled all those parameters, then that's the only time na pwede mo siyang makonsider as boyfriend or girlfriend material. Klaro hindi? Klaro with parameters? Hello? Klaro ba tayo with parameters? Nakakasunod ba kayo? Hello? Andiyan pa ba kayong lahat?
Dito pa sir, yes sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nakakasunod ba? Nagets ba yung parameter para saan? Sige, sige. So, yun yung parameter, okay? But balik tayo ulit sa void. So, as you can see, may void siya dito kasi wala siyang ni-return for set rectangle. So, wala siyang i-return, so naka-void siya. But if you're going to look at public float get area, meron siyang naka-float siya because it has to return area. Okay? Meron siya dito float area, and then kailangan niyang i-return yung value ng area. So now, if you're going to go and use get area, it is now going to give you a value. May bibigay siya na ngayon na value sa iyo, yung get area. Okay? So that's the purpose. So if example, let's say length and width is 10, 10, 10. Okay? And then you're going to ano, ah if now tatawagin natin yung get area. If you're going to go and rec uh, set rectangle, you are just setting kung ano yung length and width. Wala siyang i-return, walang lalabas na output sa screen ninyo. But if you're going to now go with float or get area, if you're going to call get area, example one dot get area, it will now give a return value. So for example, the length and width is 10 and 10. So if we're going to multiply, it's going to be 100. So now it will return a 100. It is up to you now if you're going to, yung 100 na yun, you're going to pass it into a different variable to use it later. That's the purpose of a return. Kasi if walang return, wala kang makukuha kahit anong value. Okay, kahit like ipasa mo pa siya sa isang variable, walang makukuha kasi wala nga. Okay? That's the purpose of return. Okay? So, for example, here we have the public get parameter. So you also can get the so parameter equals 2 times length and width. So, return parameter. So, ganun yung mga nangyayari. That's the purpose of return. Return mo siya para makuha mo yung value na gusto mo. Para ba yung after solving for everything, you will now get the answer. Okay? So that's to get the answer, you have to use the return. Okay? So accessor method. So a method that returns information about an object is called accessor. This is written as ito. Yan. So, okay. So, ito lang yan. Okay. Accessor is still a method. Okay. Every time you're going to get something, okay, if meron kayong, you're going to create a method to get something, that is an accessor. Ibig sabihin, you're going to get something. That's why you place the get followed by the name of the method. Kaya mapapansin nyo kanina, meron sa mga method names, merong get triangle, set triangle, and etc. So, you use get if meron kayong gustong i-return na value. If there is a return value, you place get. Para bang sa pag nagko-coding kayo, if it's text box, you write txt. If it's a button, you write btn. If radio button, rbtn, parang ganyan. Semantics. Okay? So, same with here. Okay? So, accessor and mutators is still the method. Ang pag ano lang nila is the way you declare the method name. If you want something, or if you're going to write a method and then it's going to return something, or may kukunin kayo na value doon sa method na yon, you place get on the method name to indicate na meron kang kukunin na value. Okay? For example, this one. So, uh, you have here get name. Because you are going to return the name, kaya naging get name yung method name niya. Klaro? So also, you have here get average because you will return the average. Kaya naging get average. Okay? But if you're going to use mutator, again, accessor if you're going to get something. Mutator is if you're going to set naman. Setting naman to. Okay? If you're going to set something. If you're going to give them value. Okay? So for example, set name. Ibig sabihin, from the word set, lalagyan nyo. So take note, meron siyang parameter na nire-require. String temp. Okay? So if you're going to use the method set name, you have to give a name or a string. And then that string will now be the value of name. Kaya, again, naging set siya. Okay? So, question so far.